mean by that, it's used during the reproduction cycle. It worked for both the male and the female, and then if there's well, I'll say contamination, venereal disease and stuff, which we got here, it was prevalent. And the roots on this plant, they would the medicine man, he would make medicine out of it to give to the females mostly. Okay, so that's why it's called a sensitive plant. I did not say needles. I said leaves. These are actually leaves. Okay, scientific people call them needles. Okay, you can smell it real nice. And this tree is high in tannic, so it's good for wounds and cuts and stuff. And when the tree gets really tall, they get pretty tall, and then they don't get branches low anymore. And what happens when they get a certain size, we would cut these trees down and use them as our upright poles. If you ever see how pole barns are built, well, the longhouse is built in a similar fashion. Okay, basically that's the idea where pole barns really started from, how that longhouses were built. And these would be our poles. We would cut them down, trim the branches off, then erect them when they're green. What we would do at the bottom of every log before we put them in, after we dug the holes for them, we would burn them. We would burn the bottoms maybe about, I'll say 30 inches at least, okay? And what that does, that acts as a preservative for the wood once it goes in the ground. Actually, it really does work. And the reason I know this really works is because when I was on the farm, we used to burn our French posters. So we put them in wet areas like this, and some of this day will come from still there. Okay? Oh, cool. Oh, during Midwinter-Rites, at nighttime, people would say, "Oh, gee, what do they do at night? They don't dance all day and sing and all that and eat tons of food." No, actually, on the fifth day we call it a recess. So what it is we kick back. Actual storyteller, and he tells all these stories to the kids mostly, because storytelling time is for the children to learn. Also, the wooden ones were used by the Mass Medicine Society, and there was actually restricted and unrestricted ones. I won't get too much in that because it's a real long story to explain the whole thing. But are we familiar with a false face mask, what it looks like? Anybody?
I have.
Basically what it is a wooden mask that was carved on a living tree, and I'll say grotesque, but they may have bent noses, crooked mouths, ears, and they had long straggly hair, actual animal hair, usually from the deers and that, or whatever, in the bushy animals like that. And they would make their face, and they would have holes for the eyes and a little mouthpiece so you could breathe. And some are made with long noses, and some look like pigs, some look like bears. But they were basically what they were for is to bring out the evil spirit in a person. And so the reason it's called a medicine society is because those elders and members of that society mostly had to do with medicine. I'm a medicine man, but I don't want to be called a medicine man. I'm not. I'm a root doctor. I make my medicine from the roots of plants, and I do administer them to a certain amount of people, friends and stuff like that. And not gonna. I've been proficient with it, and I treat myself. If I get colds and sick and stuff. Don't get me wrong. If I had to go get a flu shot, yes, I will. But under normal conditions, knowing what I know from what I've learned over the years, is that what plants to go for and how to harvest them. So I make my own medicine.
And the false face masks, would the medicine men wear those?
There's a special ritual that they do. It's not observed by outside. I've only seen it once in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And what it comes down to is that they would enter the sick person's house. The sick person would request the medicine society to come in. They just don't go say, "Oh yeah, I know you're sick, I'm going to come over." No, you don't do that. You got to be requested.
Right.
So once you're requested, there'll be a group of maybe 5 to 7 men, and they would all wear these masks because they don't want so the sick person and the illness doesn't see who they are. And they would come in and they would be crawling on their knees like this, okay? And as they enter the door, they would stand up, and the head, we'll say doctor, he would be the anointing of the medicine to that injured or sick person. If the person gets cured, that individual, he'll become a member of the society because he was cured. Right. Now, if he didn't get cured and something happens for unforgiven sin, he passes. Again, it's like a somewhat taboo. So it's not against them, but it was part of the Creator's way of saying it was your time. Okay, so because it's a real long thing to explain to you, but you just get the gist of what it is. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay. It's a real neat thing to really experience and see it, It does justice when you see it than actually somebody trying to explain it to you. There's a lot more to it. And there's, like I said, that's a restricted and then there's unrestricted. There's two different aspects to it. And then afterwards, there's a whole series of different kinds of dances pertaining to trees, pertaining to animal life. There's a beaver dance, otter dance. There's a numerous amount of different kinds of dances involved in chants and stuff. And so it's quite a ritual outside back into the longhouse. Again, they go for all this stuff. So that usually happens on a 6th day. So while we're talking about the medicine side, this here is an American basswood tree. This tree here is where we would carve the false face mask on, more so than the pine trees. So one thing, the wood is relatively easy to carve. Plus, the basswood is one of our sacred trees. This tree here is totally medicinal, 100%, from the roots to the leaves to the bark to the wood on the inside. Believe it or not, you can tap this tree to get some sap out of it in the springtime. It's welcoming a spring to drink a spring tonic in there, other than just the maple tree or the walnut tree. Any tree basically you can tap. You do that, you're welcoming spring, because obviously when the sap flows, it's springtime. Okay. But this is a very sacred tree to us. And they would carve the mask on these trees here, maybe 2 or 3 of them on here, on the living tree, and they would offer tobacco to the tree, saying thank you for allowing me to use you for these masks, and then for your pain and grief that you're going through. That's why when the settlers came over here originally, and they see us praying to a tree and offering tobacco, first thing you're thinking was like, what would you think? Like, wow, that guy's kind of strange, right? But no, before they realize it, they're giving thanks to the tree, thanking it for its nourishment, for its offerings and stuff. Right? Meanwhile, the mask will stay on the tree for about a year. Then the carver, he will go back and then cut them off the tree, and hollow them out, shape them, and then do the final touches with them. Then we go on and explain a little more about it. Okay, but that's the mask of the tree. This one here normally they grow straight up when the wood's pretty crowded, but since this wood, you can see the woods is not really crowded. So what happens is that the tree, any kind of type of tree, they spread out. Okay, to absorb more sunlight. Mm-hmm. Any questions on this tree? Their leaves are kind of ovate shaped. I don't know if you ever see the leaves on the cottonwood trees. Kind of ovate like that. They're kind of like the same way with the leaf ends. The leaves are real narrower. Okay? Like I said, that tree's 100%. Everybody in the longhouse. So just so you know, so you gotta get up there and just say, hey, I was bad to my wife, or I was bad to my children, or bad to my parents. So you confess this, and everybody obviously look at you, and then once you accept it, you tell that to the people. You are accepted, and they would obviously forgive you, give you a chance. So it's just like any Catholic goes to the Catholic Church and confesses. Basically, every place is the same thing. That's on the same night.
That would happen all throughout the year, or that was just part of the New Year?
Just
festival?
part of the New Year. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you follow the right path. Then hopefully you follow the right path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a New Year's like New Year's resolutions we have once a
Right,
year.
right. Basically the same thing, same
Yeah.
principle, exactly. But hopefully, back then they generally continued through the year, where we all tend to break it and go back to our old ways.
Right.
Right. Hey, Glenn, I do too.
That's enough with the gym.
Yeah. I tell myself I'm not going to not eat this no more. Well, what do? I eat twice as much.
To make up for lost time.
That's about the same principle.
Right. Yeah, it's a new year. It's a new chance to be good.
Right. Like I said, right now, just after Midwinter-Rites, with the Maple Syrup Festival, which we got to go over with now. And basically what that is it's the blessing of the maple sap. And we have like one day where we just we do dances also and sing and say thank you and burn tobacco and thank for the harvest of this stuff, okay? Maple syrup was our sweetener and our seasoner in our food and in our medicine. We have sugar. We didn't know what sugar was. We didn't know it was from the sap. Other trees such as the black walnut, the cherry tree, the eastern white pine. These trees all blend out sap. Okay? They're all, even a hickory tree. Right here, this tree right here is called a shagbark hickory. And as you can tell by the bark peeling off, this tree here was utilized a lot of stuff also because of its hardness. The bark, when it's like this here, usually on the older trees, we make offerings to this tree in the same aspects as we do the maple trees and the basswood tree. We would think if we take the bark off, we don't literally go just start tearing all the bark off this tree. We take only what we could use. We never use more than what we could use. Okay, we don't get greedy with the stuff, with trees or plants or any animals. We'll take, say, I want to make a knife out of that bark. Believe it or not, that bark is so hard, it's so durable that you can make a knife out of it. You can actually somewhat tear paper with it. Nothing like a metal knife, okay? But it'll cut. And what happens is during the nights of the longest, they would take this bark and they would shape it into knives, into scrapers, and stuff for both the women to use in the preparation of food. The medicine men and myself, I've used them for forcing the blood. Or you ever go to the doctor and they make you squeeze your fist and try to force the blood. Well, we would take that knife, we call it the knife, and we'd take it over here and we would push the blood up. And we had the special tool where we would puncture our skin so it would bleed. And then I have my medicine pouch and stuff already made, then I would inject it in and push it into the skin. That's the traditional way of doing it. And so what happens, that medicine is actually getting into your blood system now. Yeah, to look at the tools and stuff, they're crude looking, but they're very efficient. They're made out of porcupine quills or thorn apples or buckthorns. So if you have an idea what those plants are, you got an idea what you're getting pricked with, or the porcupine quills. Okay, so we utilize everything. I think really didn't go to waste. Okay. Any questions on that? And what it is, it's cough medicine. We would take the bark, the inner bark, process that, squeeze the juice out of it, and make your cough medicine out of it. Obviously, we mix it with other herbs and stuff. Okay. The springtime is the only time we can make this stuff, because after the sap runs, and the tree's starting to grow now. It needs all that nourishment to grow. But afterwards, the tree's a poison. It carries a cyanide in it, so it's deadly poison. So what cures you could be deadly too, okay? But in today's cough drop medicines, the good quality ones that's say all natural, they still utilize the red cherry bark. Other than the other ones are artificially flavored, okay? But that's the forerunner of cherry medicine bark, okay? And obviously this tree bears all nice little red, tiny little cherries in the fall time, which we use for not so much for medicine, but for flavors and seasonings. And the kids love picking them all up and chewing, like that. Very small. You look at the ground sometimes, you'll say, "Geez, that ain't nothing. to feed us guys here, this group. But you got a picture 200, 300 years ago. This here would be considered a sapling, tiny little tree. You're afraid some of these trees are old growth trees are huge. They could be anywhere 30 to 40 inches across. So that's a giant. So picture all them cherries when they come down. It'd be this whole ground covered. Same thing with walnuts. Same thing with acorns. So it's all the same thing with the trees. Okay. Also during the Midwinter-Rites, the elders would get together and they'd be talking and say, "Geez, we might have to move our village." And what happens when they decide to move a village? What happens is that the area where they grow their corn, their squash, and their beans, and their other plants, which we call the Three Sisters. We're all familiar with the Three Sisters. And the land's like any agricultural, it gets overused and it's just no good no more. It's not producing enough now. So what happens now? They got to move now. So the elders will be talking and say, "Geez, we're going to move this village now." So what? That's a big job to move a village, okay? Because now some of the old longhouses are probably 19, 15 years old, and now you figure at the bottom of the trees, eventually going to start rotting on the ground. They're going to start leaning like an old house, So they'll start moving everything. So they'll plan it, and they'll send the scouts out to find a new location. It's always got to be your source of water. If you look at any Native American reservation in the United States, it's always near water. Okay, because that's when we were granted reservation status. We all have to be near a source of water. Whether it be a little creek, a swampy area like this, or a major river. Okay, we have to have access to water because that's our sustenance for every living thing. Okay, so what happens now? They said they find the spot, blah blah. They clear the land all off, and all the trees are gone. But when they do find the trees they want, they'll say, "Geez, this looks like a nice area." And they're looking at these trees, and these are artificially planted because they're in perfect row. But in the wild, they're kind of scattered. Okay? But this tree here is called the red pine. And what the red pine we would harvest these, and these would be our poles for our longhouse, like a pole barn. Okay, we would take as many as we need. And also, we would also take these down also for the palisades. The palisade was like a fort with the outside wall that protected the village from other hostile tribes or from wild bears or any type of form of wild animals also, okay? And so once they do all that and they build all these trees all come down, all parts of the trees pretty much utilized. The greens, the boughs on top, we would use them as bedding in the longhouses to lay on, because a lot of insects don't like certain green, pine needles and stuff like that, okay? So we would utilize everything we can. The other tree, right behind you, the tree right here with the little longer leaves, that's an eastern white pine. That's our most sacred tree. That's the tree that, if you heard, we're going to bury all weapons of war under the tree. That's the tree we use, the eastern white pine tree. And the weapons of war, once you agree that you want to mention before that we accepted other tribes and other people come in, we open the arms and all that. Well, once you accepted that, you take your weapons of war and you bury them underneath the tree. And we represent that tree with 4 distinct roots: north, south, east, and west. Everything is in our society is based on 4, pretty much, because it represents the 4 directions with the sun, the moon, the stars, and the other planets on the sky. See, all kinds of reflects the same way, okay? Once they did that, and they agreed upon that this tree was so sacred that a bald eagle came by, and bald eagle landed on top of the tree, and bald eagle said to the people, spiritually wise, "I will be your protector. I will watch you." So till this day, the bald eagle is our national symbol too. Was our national symbol, and we respected the bald eagle. So any parts of the bald eagle, non-native people can't have. I have a nice set of tail feathers and some wings that I've got. I use for special ceremonies, and it's supposed to show people the tail feathers of an actual bald eagle looks like. But so that's what that means, and that's a very sacred tree in other form, because when the sap comes out, the sap is used in healing for cuts and stuff like that, adding the medicine. Okay, and just to bring it up to date, the current times, when a brand new building is built these days, if you ever notice, the last girder that goes up in place, they top it with a pine tree. That's the symbol. That's the reason why.
Wow.
So when the World Trade Center was finally topped off at 1,776 feet, they topped that last girder off with an eastern white pine that came out of the Adirondack Mountains.
Oh, wow.
Sacred tree. And when it was cut down, it was actually cut down by Native American people because they had to have more spiritual meaning for it. Okay? So that's what that means. Some old houses, you may go through there, see some old houses getting torn down. You may see, look in the corners of the house, there might be like a section of wood section. That house was blessed with that pine tree at its time when it was constructed. Even old barns might have it. So you may look up, tucked up in that corner somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Any questions pertaining to these particular trees? You're probably wondering too now, go back 300 years ago, before the advent of the settlers, how do we cut these trees down? You kind of wonder?
Okay.
We didn't have metal tools and stuff. But what did we have? Stone. We had stone tools. Yes, we were told kind of prehistoric somewhat. We call it pre-Columbia. And we had special stone tools that were specially made, and we would cut these trees down with those. But there was another way of cutting big trees down. So you got a big tree like that, or an even bigger tree you want to cut down. Say you didn't make a dugout canoe. We need a tree probably, let me see one here. Say twice as big as that tree right there, okay? And we need maybe about 10, 12 feet up in the tree. How do we get that tree down with them? We can't cut that. We've been here forever with the stone tool. And some of the stone tools were pretty sharp and hefty. But it would wear a man out, an average good man out. We would burn them. We would literally start the tree on fire. And what we do, we would gather clay, moisten clay, and wrap it around the tree. What did you use the tree? Wrap it around the tree, start a fire down below. And as that fire was burning, the saps in the wood, any kind of sap, will start burning. So as it burns and it starts going out, we would scrape it with a clamshell or a piece of slate or any sharp edge type, or even a deer shoulder. The men's societies and the women did their little things the day before. Basically what happens, the women on the seventh day, they get together and they do their participation and stuff with the women and that stuff. It's nothing, the men more or less, they're there to watch it and accept it, and they do their dancing. But it's not really like it's, wow, we're going to watch the women do their stuff. No. Traditionally, it wasn't done that way. Women just come more like, I'll say, semi-private ordeal with it, but they do participate in it. So after the seventh day, the eighth day comes, and we have the bowl game, bowl day. And what that is that all the people that were healed or semi-cured or made well again, stuff like that, and the people that passed on, this is the day where we blessed them. This, like we're saying, hopefully we did good. And what happens, it's literally a game. And it's a wooden card bowl, and we use peach pits. And they would dye one side of them. And then what they do, they would take these peach pits, and there was a counter. He had maybe like 100 beans, like that. And the game would last for a day, maybe a day and a half, like that. I mean, it goes on all night. So it's like betting. And so what happened, one moiety, remember I mentioned the moieties, the wolf clan and the turtle clans, okay? They would bet against each other, and what happens, each one had to say, I want your binoculars. And then I gotta say, well, I'm gonna give you my stick, right? Okay, now we would tie these together, and we would bet on this. And whoever how the pitch would fall, process of elimination. The idea is to get all your opponent's picks. go play with. Okay, say I won. Okay. No, I'll let you win. Say you won. Okay, you would take my beloved pointing stick, and I'd cherish so much. It has to be something that you really cherish. A lot of times the wampum was what you mentioned about wampum was highly wanted and rated. So, but it was still kind of semi-scarce. Okay, but so that was really sacred if you won that. So it's like yes, you know? But this is what going on. Right? Then finally, to all the clans and the individual clans in the groups, like in Seneca, there's 8. So as we all were done playing, like I said, this can go on for all night. And you would win it, and you would lose it all. I would win it, and I would lose it all, and vice versa as it goes through all the clans. Okay, so finally, obviously one clan member is going to win it regardless. He wins whatever you have. So you take it, and they count. And the bean guy, I call him bean guy, the checker. He would mark out. Oh, he won. They won. You know, they would be counting beans, and it goes up to. I think the tradition was 110 beans. So you could win it, lose it. You're basing for all through the night. So it would be a no-night affair. You know, most of it just played by men and women. And that. So
did the clans play against each other?
They played against each other.
Okay.
Yes. Like I said, the turtle clan.
Yeah.
And the wolf.
And it wasn't just individual winnings; these would be winnings for the whole
winning in the group.
clan.
Because now let me think now, Bev. I'm going to go because today we call them the animal and the bird groups. Okay, the animals is the snapping turtle, the wolf, the bear.
Heron?
No, beaver.
Okay.
Okay, those are the animal groups. No, ours on the bird group is the snipe, the heron, the snipe, the hawk, and you ready for this one? The deer.
Oh.
Everybody goes, what do you mean, the deer? Does it belong with the animals? Theoretically, yes. But there's a catch. When you see a deer running in through the woods, and then we call it taking flight, as you know, deer. What do you see when he runs? Now picture a deer running. Just say we just startled a deer, and he takes off. What's he do? What's the first thing? You don't think of it, but
Turns.
the tail goes up. Very good. Yeah, he's taking flight. So taking flight, birds do what? Birds take flight.
Yeah.
Right? They take off and they fly. Well, basically that's what the deer's doing. When he runs, he's jumping up in the air. His tail pops up in the air. I call it the fanny flag. And he goes up to it, so he's taking off. So that's why he's in with the bird group. Okay, so those are the 4 clans of the Iroquois. Some may have all that was like an eagle, an otter, or something like that. Okay. Cool. And in the clans, as we call moiety, is that matriarchal is that the women have the right more so than the guys. So during their time of the rights, they have a chance to help start naming the new kids that are born. They were born in January and February. They get names. The older children they'll get their spiritual names, like he jumped over a log, or Skyfall, or names. You might hear some names like that, you know, from various different tribes. Just how they get those names. Well, generally the names were given to you during the Midwinter-Rites. Okay, and the women have they can say, well, I'm gonna name him Joe. Okay, so your name is Joe, and you may get a spiritual name also. Okay, I know as Marv. Obviously, I was named Marv, but my spiritual animal is the red-tailed hawk, and I feel bad about saying this, but I forgot how to say my spiritual name in our language. So don't tread on me, please. No. but that is my spirit animal too. Usually sometimes when you get spirit animals, they're called totems. And basically, an animal, and people have a certain behavior. Is that because if you watch, let's say you're watching some kind of bird and you're just watching him pecking at that log, and you obviously know he's foraging for insects or something to eat. But if you're watching all he's doing, he might be doing like a hop jump or tilting his head or rubbing his bill, you know, doing some kind of stuff. You're fascinated with it because you're observing this. All of a sudden, you don't say, "Gee, I really like that bird." Don't say a woodpecker, and then say, "Wow, that's good." That woodpecker will become your animal, totem animal, and you would relate to that animal or that bird